Howdy, folks. Steve Sweeney here with Headwaters for Heroes with another session of Conversations with Heroes. Today's session is sponsored by Mr. Joey Holland, his company's Verturo Interest, and his ranch, La Lupita Ranch. We spent a lot of time down there. We thank him for his sponsorship. And today we have Staff Sergeant Matt Wheeler with us for this session. How are you doing, Matt?
I'm well. How are you? Good.
Well, we don't have to act like we don't know each other because we've known each other for quite a few years now. We've had some interesting times. It's been great all these years, hanging out with you.
Oh yeah.
We've watched a progression with you, and it's been a ride. So, Matt, tell us where you're from.
From Millsap, Texas, so up near Fort Worth, DFW area.
Okay.
So out in the sticks.
So you should be used to this cedar, though.
Oh yeah, no, I've actually had this conversation recently. Was before I left Texas for the Marine Corps, no allergies, nothing, was never sick, and then I moved back, and now it's every single year I get allergies. So
wow. Well, I think I'm starting to outgrow at my old age.
I hope.
Yeah, it's we can hope and dream. It's one of those deals. So you grew up in Texas, and I know where Millsap is. It's not a big town. It's probably bigger now.
It's a lot bigger now.
Yeah, because all the developing going on across the state of Texas. It's incredible. All these small towns. I know when I went to college in Stephenville at Tarleton, I used to hit DFW pretty hard partying. And, it's back in the day, it was a long drive up through Granbury to Fort Worth.
Yeah, it was.
And whether we were going up to rodeo or we were just going up to party, the Monday night speakeasy was the one we always went to. But, it was desolate in between there.
Oh, yeah.
And now I drove that road recently, and it's like you are never out of something.
Oh, yeah.
And it's incredible the way the state is growing. So what possessed you to join the Marines?
It was a pretty easy decision. I come from a military family. Mostly,
tell us about that.
Yeah, mostly, Navy, Air Force, Army, that kind of stuff. Both my grandfathers served in theirs, but my granddad on my mom's side was 31 or 32 years, retired as a command sergeant major out of the Army.
Wow.
Was in Vietnam. All kinds of cool medals and, all the good stuff, right?
What was it like being around a command sergeant major as a kid?
It was interesting. He wasn't like real tough, but if you were kind of out of line, he would just kind of snap you back in. So he was. It was good though. He liked to play golf, and I think, he had retired before I could even remember. But it was one of those things where he was like real big into golf, and he wanted an easy life. He went and drove a bus for VIA in San Antonio. Didn't want anything to do with management anymore, nothing like that. And so he was actually pretty easygoing until you stepped out of line, and then it was you kind of saw that guy come back out, and you're like, well, I don't want to see that again. But I think I was more scared of my German grandmother, because she was she was one of the ones, she'll snatch you up before he will. But then my granddad on my dad's side, he was in for a few years, and then my dad was in for a few years in the Air Force, and that's where he met my biological mother. She was in the Air Force with him. So for me, it was a pretty easy decision, but it was never like forced on me or anything like that. And I think my big push to for the Marine Corps was watching the History Channel. I think I was like 13, 14 years old, and I was like, oh, dude, Marines are pretty cool. They were in it was Iwo Jima that was on TV. It's
right.
Going over the battle and everything like that. I was like, yeah, being a Marine would be pretty cool, I think. And so that's just kind of what I had my sights set on. And the recruiter didn't have to do any work. He just kind of kept me at bay for about 4 years until I was old enough to actually enlist, and then it was done.
So you knew 4 years before you enlisted that's what you wanted to do.
Oh yeah. I had at the time I had no inclination for furthering my education. I had I wasn't like a bad student or anything, but I just didn't really care for all the schoolwork and everything else. Just busy. Like I wanted to go and do something, and and I knew college at that time probably wasn't a really good fit for me because, just more studying. And so I knew as a Marine, like I would be busy all the time.
Right.
They'd keep me going, and they sure did. So that was really kind of a big decision for me. And I mean, I knew no matter what, it was going to happen. And then of course 9/11 happened, and that just kind of furthered the desire to want to go. So.
Yeah, they saw recruitment numbers, enlistment numbers just really skyrocketed after that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, which was much like World War II. When especially after Pearl Harbor.
Oh sure.
Oh man, the enlistment. Well, people were running to go serve their country.
Yep.
And so and we see those cycles in our country from time to time, and unfortunately, it's because of bad things.
That's right.
But I don't know how we get that patriotism on a regular basis, because like even 9/11, a lot of our young kids that are in school now, they're not taught anything about it,
right?
And they don't really know what happened.
Sure.
And so we don't have that flood of patriotism as often as we should. Right. And right now, with the way things have been in the military, enlistments are down. A lot of it has to do with the wokeism that's going on in the military right now.
Sure.
I'm a firm believer, the military's here to kill and break things, and, there's no room for the wokeism. That's my opinion, people. I'm sorry if it offends you. But that's not what we're here to talk about. So what year did you actually head to boot camp?
2004.
2004. Where'd you do?
Camp Pendleton, San Diego.
San Diego.
So, not a lot of people realize that, unless you were in the Marine Corps, just kind of associated with the military, they don't realize like where you go to boot camps. And so Camp Pendleton, California is the easiest to say. But yeah, so San Diego. And then from there, went to comm school for, I think, 7 weeks in 29 Palms. God, what a hellhole. Anyway, so that 7 weeks was really interesting. I've never seen it snow in the desert, and it snowed.
Really?
In 29 Palms, yeah. And that, that was that wasn't where I wanted to be, in my career. Not the job, not the MOS I was wanting to do. I was wanting to be EOD, and I knew that from, when this recruiter's like, hey, man, here's a job list. Here's all the different things you can do. Like, here's like what you can do with your ASVAB score, all this other stuff. And, I scored really well in my ASVAB. And, I saw kind of EOD and I saw some, did some research on it. I was like, dude, this is super cool. But in the Marine Corps, it's the only branch that you cannot go directly into that field.
Why?
Because you can't, and you also just can't be an officer in that field either. You have to LDO and everything else. Like, you can't go in as a second lieutenant. And the reason being is because in the Marine Corps, it's considered like a major leadership role, because you're with a team, you're with a small team, and you're attached to a unit. And, that's kind of the premise of it, is you need to, in the Marine Corps, it's believed you need to be more mature. You need to have some experience under your belt, to be able to go and do these things and not have somebody like directly above you,
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So, yeah. So, I mean, you had to be a sergeant or an E5 at the time, and there were times where, they would bump it down to, you could be a corporal to be able to, I hate to say the word apply, but pretty much apply for it. It's kind of like in the special community where you can say, I want to do this, but until you pass like their NDOC and everything else, you can't actually submit for the job through like your career planner. So there, there's just kind of a lot of that going on. Like, I remember I was in Iraq and I was getting ready to re-enlist, and I was like, EOD this is all I want. I was a sergeant at the time, and so I had to go over to the other side of the base to where the base team was, and do my NDOC there, with the bomb suit and, carrying a South African 155 from one place to another, figuring out how to open a Connex container with ropes and pulleys, just all kinds of stuff, right? And really what it is, it's to see, one, like in the bomb suit, are you claustrophobic, for when you get into this thing? And so anyway, it's, can you handle it? And then not only can you handle it, can you also pick up when I say a South African 155, I mean, this is a big ass shell, right? This thing weighs, I don't know, probably 60 pounds or so. And you've already got on over 150-pound suit on. And so, the whole job behind that is, pick it up, walk it about 100 meters, set it down. You got to lay on your stomach, roll all the way over, sit back up, get up in the suit, pick the thing back up and walk it back, right? And this is all just to kind of see how you handle like short-term stress, things like that. And it's hotter than hell in this suit. They have like fans in the helmet, but they don't really do anything. So, you're sweating your balls off the whole time and you're trying to move this, and really what it is like critical thinking under stress is kind of what they're trying to figure out. And then of course it goes to, opening up like this Connex door with ropes and pulleys. That's really just to kind of see like logically, where are you logically and mechanically, can you do this? And that was just kind of a big deal just to find out if somebody had kind of what it takes to, navigate, going down on unexploded ordnance, or during my time, the big thing was IEDs, right? Making sure that you have the mental capacity in just in a very inert setting, to see if you could actually hack it just doing that, right? And so, once you get through that, then you can apply, or you can re-enlist or whatever to go to EOD school. And so you do that, and that's about 9 months long. One of the toughest schools in the military. It's the attrition rate is 65%. So 65% of people fail out of the school.
Wow.
And a lot of it is it's all about mental fortitude and actually just like being dedicated. But you got to have some smarts to you as well. I mean, everything you do in that school is classified. So you're not taking anything home to study. All your studying happens at 4:30 in the morning. You get to the schoolhouse 4:30 in the morning and you study until about 8, and you've got 2 to 3 tests per week. Written tests, and then also what we call, prac-app, like practical tests, going out and and I mean, you're doing everything from learning about electricity, because everything is electronic based. You got to have electricity to make certain, things happen, certain fuses function, things like that, right? And then more to the point, like IEDs, that's all mostly electrical based, So anyway, it was a good school, very hectic, very stressful. And that's just kind of why a lot of people don't make it, but it was a good time. I will say, Friday and Saturday night though, all bets are off. Like it is just like party central. Cause I mean, you're in Destin, Florida, what is always ranked in the top 5 party towns in the U.S. every year. I mean, you can't, it's like being in downtown Austin, at 6th Street. I mean, you can't throw a rock without hitting a bar.
Right.
And everything there is open till 4 a.m.
Jesus.
So, I mean, you're just losing your mind for 2 days straight. And then, Sunday you're back to, time to go to bed. It's 7:30. So, I don't really know what got me off on that tangent, but, telling you about like EOD and just kind of what it was about. But, I
can imagine, when you're all day long and you're learning and that if it's got to be stressful throughout the week, knowing that you can't forget anything. And then you got to have a time to unwind. And
sure.
And knowing you, I can imagine what those were like.
They were some. There wasn't as much debauchery in my life at that point.
Oh, that came later.
I was still a little more reserved, I mean, I had some friends we'd go out and drink with and stuff, and but my thing was always, when I went to the Marine Corps, was always about keeping your nose clean. And that's just something that they beat into you, and a lot of people don't really care. They're just going to do what they're going to do, and to hell with the consequences. I was just always looking for the next promotion, and you don't get that when you're messing up all the time, or you're not excelling, and especially when it comes to like things where you start getting fit reps and they're actually writing stuff about you, not just giving you some number score to tell you like, your pros and cons, but actually, grading you on your performance and your professionalism and everything else that you do. And so I was always, in the back of my mind, I was like, dude, I can't mess around, because if I get in trouble, then this is, bad news here. So, I kept my nose clean while I was in the Marine Corps. I certainly, at least I certainly tried. So
that is good to know, because I can only imagine if you were, when I first met you, well, not really the first time I met you, but the second time is when okay, I know, Steve, I can do whatever I want now. And wow, we had some good times. But
yeah, we did have some good times.
But, I think of even the younger guys that are enlisting now, in which I'm going to give a shout out, Tyler Miles, a Gold Star kid that we took hunting.
Oh,
one of the first ones. He just graduated boot camp.
Did he really?
That was yesterday.
Oh, that's awesome.
So we're very proud of him. John Hennon, who was also a Gold Star youth with us and did many hunts with us, he's now on I want to say his third year.
Oh, wow.
It's either the second or he's in his third year now.
That's fantastic.
So, I mean, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Both of them lost their fathers fighting for our country. And so it's awesome. And we hope to get them in for a session too, because that's going to be a different dynamic.
Oh, for sure.
Than talking to the veterans, and I did a session with a Vietnam veteran who was EOD.
Oh, very cool.
And it was very much different, what he has described compared to what you've already described. And you haven't really gotten into detail,
sure,
but it was very different. It was a lot of wires. It was spring-loaded stuff, but there was no electronics.
Right.
And so it was a lot different. I'm not taking away that it was any less or any more dangerous,
sure.
but to be in EOD is, to me, I mean, it's got to be one of the most stressful MOSs out there.
Yeah. You would always hear people be like, "Oh man, you're like fucking crazy," and all this other stuff. And it's kind of
okay. What was that? There was a movie.
I think the Hurt Locker.
Hurt Locker.
Yeah, don't pay attention to that.
Yeah, they kind of at the end they were portraying him as being somewhat crazy.
Yeah. What I will say is, at least and I know EOD techs, but from every branch, right? But I would say in the Marine Corps we're known to be a little more eccentric than other Marines. That's kind of how we put it. Are we crazy? My wife would probably tell you, yes, I'm pretty crazy. But
God bless her.
But we it's just so varied between each tech. Some techs are just like really just I mean, they really get into the knowledge of it all, and it's just it's super exciting for them. And others are, it's kind of like a thing where you're in a small field and it's a camaraderie of it all, and you feel like you have a really good home. And I mean, but everybody knows that this is what the mission is, and this is what I signed up for. Yes, I'm willing to walk down on live ordnance or live IEDs or whatever. Like I'm willing to do this. And I mean, I think it takes a certain amount of appreciation for risk. And I mean, I served with a guy, and one of his favorite sayings was, "If there isn't a risk of dying, it's not worth doing." And so I wholeheartedly agree. And I'm sure there are times that I came a little too close, but that was just kind of such a big deal. Like in the EOD community, was just what you signed up for. What's going to happen. At some point you're going to come up on anything, whether it be just UXO, which is unexploded ordnance, or being deployed and messing around with IEDs. You're going to come up to some of that, and it does take a certain amount of really testicular fortitude, to walk up on this thing and know, like, hey man, like I'm, until what you're messing with, you're not really in control of that situation. But once you get control of it, then it's different. And I've always told people that being on top of an IED was the most focused and the calmest I've ever been in my life, because there's no room for the stress. There's no room for the second guessing. There's no room for anything other than being confident in what you're doing and doing it right. And there's this big motto at the EOD school in Florida, and it's this big saying. It says initial success or total failure, right? So either you do it right, or you're dead.
Yeah.
pretty much.
Makes sense.
And so a lot of guys, that's just how, we get when, there might be a little bit of fear when you're walking down on a live device because you don't know what it is. You don't know if there's secondary, tertiary devices hanging out. You don't know whether this thing's got 1, 2, 3 different sorts of triggers on it, which we started seeing later in Afghanistan. More complex devices, and you don't really know. And so, of course, there might be a little fear, a little bit of, well, shit, man, like, is this really what I want to do with my life? And then, next thing you know, you're on top of this thing and you're going to work. And then all that goes away. And it's all just about focusing and being in the moment. Even if you're under fire while doing this thing, it's, so I guess you have to be a little bit crazy, but also, you gotta be able to also zone, a lot of emotions out, like really be able to get into it and focus. And that's where, like after you get done doing your deal, like sometimes like you're shaking real bad. It's because, the adrenaline rush and you're like, shit, all right, I'm ready. Let's go do it again, because you got so much adrenaline running through your body. And that's what a lot of guys live for, and what's funny is that's something really hard to find after you get out. Last time I went down an IED was a decade ago, and I still haven't found anything that is anywhere close to being anywhere near, like adrenaline rushing. So
not even stabbing a hog in Louisiana.
That was fun. I will tell you that was a good time. That was there was a lot of adrenaline there for sure. But like I felt it was awesome because there was no fear. Like I had these guys and these dogs, and I mean they knew what they were doing. And I mean, I was just there to be, I was just there to have a good time, whoop and holler and all this stuff. And these guys were actually working. And I was like, I feel good about this. Now, had I been doing this on my own, I probably would have died, Sweeney. I mean, like, let's be honest. Like, I probably would have been gored to death.
Well, I don't think any of us really look at, I'm going to go stab a hog today. Let me go find one. I've talked to other veterans that have been on those type of hunts, and I've talked to other people, and it is an adrenaline rush, and, and they all say the same thing. It's not something I would go out on my own and try to do. But folks, if you want to see that particular hunt, it's on YouTube for Headwaters for Heroes. It's part of our outdoor show that we did for a couple of seasons, and it really showed a lot. And so that's what's important about this right now. We'll come back, and we're talking more about you that we didn't get to do in the outdoor show.
Sure.
You only got 22 minutes, and you got a lot of things you got to cover. And but so we're back with you here. So you talk about the adrenaline, and you haven't found that again. Was that in any way when you came back? Was that a struggle in your life, or is it just something? Okay, can't find the adrenaline. Okay, whatever. Did you have issues with that?
I would say. Personally, maybe in the beginning, but more or less, I was already dealing with my leg stuff after being blown up, and so there wasn't a lot of being able to think about that too much. Whereas I know other guys who, they got out and they really struggled, trying to find stuff. So they started jumping out of planes again, and all kinds of stuff. Just whatever. But a lot of guys honestly. Acclimatized to that pretty rapidly from what I can tell from guys who have gotten out or retired. And some of them, they're like BAOs at airports, bomb explosive guys, at airports and stuff like that. And they're still working with explosives and things like that. So, they still get...
and I'm sure some of them went into city type, SWAT environments where, bomb technicians. And that makes a lot of sense. I mean, our military does so much in the research and the education side that a lot of this stuff, and I talk about medically, there's so many advances in the medical side of from a trauma standpoint that if it weren't for our military hospitals, we wouldn't have a lot of the stuff we have. And I would suspect it's probably the same on the EOD side.
Yep.
I think our military does a great job. So take us back to where you were at, what led into you getting blown up.
I mean, it's a pretty simple thing. We were in Sangin, Afghanistan, just a really hotbed at that point. We had taken it from the British, who just really couldn't, push very far out of what was known, Fob Jackson, which calling it a fob is a real upgrade to it. I mean, if it was nothing more than just really a small cop, with like 2 buildings. But the British had this place for a couple of years, and they were just having a really hard time being able to push into, into the city and everything else, and all the surrounding areas to actually, stop what was going on there. And you got to think this was like a real big breeding ground for the Taliban. I mean, there were a lot of guys that lived there, and there were cell leaders that came out of there, and there was training that was going on there. And so it was a real tough fight. And so when I got there was probably, I don't know, maybe 12 months after the Marine Corps had taken over. And within their first probably 2 weeks, it was said that the British would go out about 500 meters, and they just get all shot up, and they just really couldn't push out anywhere past that. Well, you take a bunch of jarheads, they're going to relish it. And I mean, they took over, they took over this place in, 2 weeks. Absolutely just put it to bed. But then again, that's where the IED stuff comes in, right? Once you start taking out these guys' fighters, the IED stuff really becomes a lot more prevalent, which, I saw in Marja as well when we pushed into there. It was a lot of firefighting and stuff like that. And then as soon as, we pushed further into the city, that's when, IED started coming into place. And, because a lot of the fighters were gone, so now you had your IED in placers because they were going to do whatever they could do to get at you. But that, also happened in Sangin, and I will say it was not uncommon between like Mateen and Sangin and all these other places that were all just within I don't know, maybe a 10-click radius of each other, that you would go to work on one IED, and while you're working on this one, you find 2 or 3 more. All in the same place, because these guys were just deadly serious about taking you out. So anyway, we were there, and I was, I was attached to 1-5 at the time. And, we were with, Alpha Company. And so, we were just, my big area of operation was this thing called the Fish Bowl. It was a small town, but really, really high mud walls. And it was the Fish Bowl because it was kind of down in like a small valley. And right. So, when you're coming into it, you can like look down into this town and into its really high walls. And so they just called it the Fish Bowl. But once you get in there, it's almost eerie. Because there are people living in there, but it's quiet. Like there's no wind that gets into there. It's hard for me to even describe what it's like being in this place. It's just like quiet. And that's not something that you're just really used to. You're used to hearing, motorcycles going by, or, right. People's animals, going off and everything else. So, you're just walking in there and it's all quiet. But there are IEDs all over the place in there. And so, that was kind of where my main mission was. And then Bravo Company, our team over there, they had, 18 casualties in 1 week. And wow. So, the EOD guys over there that I knew really well, they were going to give that whole company, they called it a 72. They pulled them back and they gave them 72 hours to just do nothing. And so my team and a squad or 2 squads from Alpha Company, we went over into their little AO, and there wasn't much of a handoff. There's no left seat, right seat. You're just walking in, and these guys are walking out, so they can go take a break. They just lost 18 dudes. So, we get in there, and we're trying to just kind of figure out the terrain. Like I said, we're only there for 72 hours. We go out the first, probably late afternoon. We're humping around, getting some firefights, just checking things out. And really the whole thing is just keeping a presence there, right? We're not there to take over, their mission. Just our whole point of being there for that time while they were resting was to just make sure that these guys knew, hey, we were still here. Like, we were still a presence, you know,
Right.
like you're not safe just because, you know, you hit us like that. Like, there's still a presence here. And so, you know, we, for about 2 days, it was just this. It was going out, you know, into an unfamiliar area that we just didn't know, and you know, getting into firefights, finding IEDs, you know, just all the good fun stuff. And then on the third, it was the third morning. You know, we're going to obviously another place we hadn't been. You always change things up. And you know, we're walking along inside of a canal, and it's like, hey, either we go, you know, left across this canal, or we keep going straight. You know, and I mean, there was a little bit of talking back and forth. But anyway, they decided, hey, you know, we're going to go left. All right, man, that's cool. And I remember telling my teammate, Danny Ridgway, I was like, man, you know, I was like, dude, something just don't feel right today. I was like, something just feels really off. And, you know, I believe, you know, as a human being, we have intuition. You know, we can sometimes feel when things are off. Whether it's with somebody else or whether it's with you or a situation or just kind of whatever you're walking into. You know, I told him, I said, man, I was like, Danny, I'm telling you right now, like, something crazy is going on, whatever. So anyway, we walk across this canal. I'm the 11th person over, and there's 13 of us in the squad, right? You know, we're walking Indian file. And, you know, my corpsman is behind me, and, you know, he's got this big old backpack and everything. Anyway, so it's kind of a deep canal, but we get over to the other side, and I walk off, and I look back, and my corpsman's kind of struggling to get out. So I literally just did a 180 and walked back to go, like, help him out of there, and then I stepped on an IED. You know, which is not very uncommon to, you know, have.
Right.
It's not always the first guy that's going to step on you, because your first guy is a sweeper. And, you know, this IED was a pressure switch IED, you know, low mag, no mag, which means that there was basically no metal in this for this metal detector to pick up. And what they had done is they had run the lead wire off about 10 feet, which is where the power source was. And so, you know, you're not going to pick that up unless you walk over it, right? It just so happens we went across. In you know, it wasn't really the path of least resistance, but it was definitely one where you could see that maybe somebody would try to cross. And so, of course, you know, they were smart enough to stick an IED there. So anyway, I stepped on this thing, and I wake up on the ground, and my buddy Danny looks at me and goes, "You all right?" I'm like, "Fuck no." I'm like, dude, I'm like, my leg, man. And you know, so, you know, they call in a medevac, and you know, big shout out to Danny. He, I think he cleared another 7 IEDs to allow this helicopter to land. Was awarded a Silver Star.
Wow.
You know, did a really great thing right there. And all those guys, man, you know, when they started taking fire, and you know, and that's pretty much what I can remember about it, because I had a very overzealous corpsman. This man loved his morphine pens. And for a guy,
What did you?
you know, for somebody who has never taken any drugs, I had never done drugs, nothing, like never. And, you know, so I'm in pain. And this guy, he hits me with 2 ml right in the leg. And I'm like, okay, you know, whatever. And he goes, all right, man, you okay? I mean, he asked me like right after the fact, and he goes, do you still feel pain? I'm like, yeah. So he's like, oh, another 2. He pops that one in my leg too. And I'm like, you just put it in, and you're just now asking me. So here I am, like 4 mils deep into this, and helicopter's on its way. And so, you know, give it another few minutes, and he's just kind of sitting there, and he's just kind of freaking out because he's working on my leg, and he's like, I don't know if he just, you know, like this Ricky Bobby, what do I do with my hands sort of thing, you know, but he reaches in his bag and grabs another pin and like stabs me in the leg with it. So I'm 6 mils morphine deep here. And I'm like, I'm like floating at this point. Like pain didn't even exist, you know, like I didn't even hardly know where I was, but you know, so, you know, here I am. And this is probably within 15 minutes, right? That he had given me these 3 morphine shots. Well, They load my ass up on this helicopter. I get on there, and I don't really know what's being said, but the corpsman is talking to this flight corpsman, you know, whatever they're called, you know, And, they're talking back and forth. And next thing I know, I got another pin going into my leg from the guy on the helicopter. So I'm like 8 mLs into this. And I mean, I've been wounded for at this point, maybe 17 to 20 minutes. And I've had 4 of these things shot into my legs. And so I'm just like, the helicopter ride, I don't really remember. I
bet not.
No, I just remember I was floating. That's all I could say. It was like, I was like, man, this is all right, whatever. But then I remember they got me into Leatherneck, and they're wheeling me into this, hospital, this ER. And man, as soon as I get in there, that nurse, like, they're ripping my clothes off, and I'm like, it's my lower leg, man. You don't need to. I mean, my dick don't need to be hanging out like while we're doing this. You don't need to be cutting all my clothes off. I mean, they cut my camis off and everything. I was like, I could have even unbuttoned it for you. I don't know. But so they're cutting everything off, and pow, they hit me again with another one of these things. And I'm like, at this point, I mean, even in my state, I'm kind of like, I feel like maybe this is a little too much, because
we're at 10 now.
We're at a full 10 ml of morphine. And so anyway, they get all my clothes off and everything, and I'm naked as a jaybird laying on this bed, and I got all these freaking corpsmen and doctors and stuff around me, and I'm just like, oh boy, it's like I'm high as a kite. I don't know what's going on with my leg. And my willy's hanging out. This is all that I know. And and you know me, man. I'm like, I'm not afraid of, like, full frontal nudity. I'm cool with it, dude. I mean, we're people. Like, underneath your clothes, you're naked or whatever.
Yeah.
Not a big deal to me. So, but at this time, I'm feeling a little bit unsure if I actually like being naked in front of a room full of people. I'm just waiting on the bow chicka wow wow to come on, yeah. And like I'm just like, dude, what's happening here? So anyway, they finally wheel my ass into this room, and they give me an IV. They stick this IV in, and this nurse, she has this other, like, little bag. She hangs it up, and it goes into the IV or whatever. And I said, what's that? She goes, morphine. I was like, Jesus Christ. I was like, they've given me a lot. And she's like, well, how much have you had? And I'm sitting here high as hell trying to figure out exactly how many shots I had just taken. And I was like, I'm pretty sure I've been given 5 of those, like, pins. She goes, 5. And like, she's looking at me like I'm out of control. And cue throwing up. I started throwing up all over the place because I had so much of this stuff in my system and I wasn't used to it. And so I'm throwing up everywhere. I mean, everywhere. And well, the MEF General Dana at the time, he's making his rounds in this hospital, and he comes into this room, and he's standing at the doorway, and I'm still naked, still throwing up, and he looks, he goes, I'll come back another day. And so, I didn't even know who he was. And anyway, I got to, finally they got it all calmed down, it was all okay. In the end, I mean, I threw up until, it was just hacking at that point, nothing
Right.
else was coming up. But the next day, he came back. And what's funny is we actually became pretty good, pals over the years. I still know him. He's just retiring and, 3 stars. I mean, great guy, really just a super wonderful dude. I mean, every year he still writes my dad a letter, talking about, hey man, thanks for, your son's service and this and that. And my dad still gets letters from him.
That's awesome.
And a really, really good guy, right? But I'll just never forget, I mean, how I even remembered seeing that man come in and just, I'll be back another day. Like, obviously there was an impact there. But, and then following that, it was just the usual stuff, being laid up in Leatherneck for, I think, a day and a half, and then getting sent to another base for like another 12 hours or so, and then finally getting to Landstuhl, Germany, and I was there for, oh Lord, probably 2 days, and then I finally got back to California. I got to Balboa, so I think it was about 5 days total before I got back home, and it didn't, I don't know. They gave me so many drugs. Like, I'm pretty sure that there are people who would pay a lot of money for that trip. Yeah. But so anyway, yeah. 5 days later, there I was, and come to find out, morphine just wasn't my best friend because as time was going on, they were just still loading me up with this stuff, and I was still getting sick, and And when I got to Balboa, this lieutenant colonel, you know, she's like, hey, you know, he's throwing up a lot. Maybe this isn't for him. Well, then I found out what dilaudid was. Oh God, dude, let me tell you something. That, wow. You know, laying in a hospital bed, like, I mean, traveling through space. You know, like that stuff was legit. I mean, but it would like put you to sleep too. But it stopped the pain, and it also stopped, you know, me throwing up and everything else. But having never done a single drug in my life, never having anything stronger than Tylenol, let me tell you, I got it all in all at one time within about 5 days. So,
well, that. You know, and I've heard some of these guys over the years. It's like, you know, they get blown up and they're there, and I even had one story where the guy asked the nurse, "Do I still have my junk?" That's all he was worried about.
Oh yeah.
You know, it doesn't matter about my legs, but do I still have my junk?
Oh yeah. No, I know that's right. I mean, like that was kind of one of my first things, you know, like make sure everything's there, you know, stick your hands out there and under and make, all right, everything's cool, man. I'm counting 3 things. We're good. Yeah. You know, like everything's sucked up inside my body right now because, you know, it's trying to protect itself, but hey, it's there.
Yeah. And history shows us that it still works. We'll talk about that later. So your total recuperation, I mean, you're in the hospital. Your family, obviously, at this point is around you.
Sure.
What was it like for your family? I mean, obviously, they got that phone call that, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it was, I mean, I can't really say from their standpoint. I mean, I know that they were just happy I was home, and I know that there was a lot of emotion that kind of went around that because, you know, it could have gone a lot worse than it did.
Right.
You know, and I'd called, you know, my ex-wife at the time. I, you know, called her from the hospital in Camp Leatherneck there. Just was like, hey, I'm fine, but, you know, my leg, you know. And so there was some emotion, and you know, my dad kind of took it hard too, and, you know, he ended up flying out to California as I was coming in, and so, you know, seeing everybody. I think the biggest impact, though, was, you know, being wheeled into this room in Balboa, and my oldest son, Jackson, he was 6 days when I deployed. And so this happened about 2 months in. So he was just a little over 2 months, right, you know, when I came back in, and, you know, holding him just, I mean, I was cool. I was cool as a cucumber forever. And then, you know, he gets put in my arms, I just break down. And I'm just like, man.
So what was going through your mind?
You know, I had been through, you know, we talked about the EOD community and it being very close knit and really tight, you know, even with all the other branches. And every year, the very beginning of May, the first weekend of May, they have the EOD memorial. And it's, you know, and then an EOD ball. But the memorial is all about putting the guys who had, you know, committed the ultimate sacrifice, right?
Right.
You know, we have what we call the wall. It's the EOD wall. It's at the EOD school there in Florida, and each branch has their own part of the wall. And if somebody dies from that branch the year before, their name gets engraved on the wall, and it's a big memorial thing. And I mean, a ton of EOD techs are showing up. And you know, so some guys that I had known, you know, their name got put on the wall and stuff like that. You know, and I knew their children and things. And so for me, you know, when I helped Jackson again, I was like, dude, this kid could have been, you know, the only thing he would have known of me was my name was up on a wall, or, you know, it's on a tombstone. Like, you know, we had 2 or 3 pictures together just because he was 6 days old when I left, you know, and and he had a rough time coming into the world anyway. So he was in one of these like Billy boxes, I think is what they call them, you know, like the Billy Rubin lights, and so he had really bad jaundice. So there was really no holding him for the first few days. And it wasn't until the night before I left that the hospital was like, yeah, you know, we'll send you home with him. And then, you know, he has to be in this like blanket that has these lights in it, right? Mm-hmm. So, you know, there wasn't like a lot of me holding in pictures. So he wouldn't have had that. Like, I mean, the kid would have had no memory of really who I was, other than seeing pictures of me and stuff like that. So, you know, I mean, all of that kind of hit me, you know, it just in thinking and putting myself in his shoes, being like, dude, like, you know, he could have been growing up without me, and that I wouldn't have known any better. I mean, it would have sucked for me, but more so for him. And
Right.
so that one kind of hit me really hard because everybody else is an adult. They know how to deal with things. And here's my 2-month-old son. And like I said, I've seen it with these, and you've seen it, with these kids that, lose their parents overseas. That's a hard thing to overcome.
Right.
That's not it doesn't matter if you remembered them or not, or, if you were 13 or 14 years old when they passed. Like, I mean, growing up without your father I can imagine it's not easy, and knowing that he's not going to ever come back into your life. I mean, the guy's gone, like, so that's what that was for me, was thinking about that and thinking about, man, like, I could have just been gone. And this guy would have, who knows who would have been raising him or setting a male example for him, so.
Well, and that's something that in the Gold Star community, we do see, it's, and I'm not trying to bash any of the widows, but it's unfortunate that there's a class of people out there that prey on that.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're right. You don't know who would be raising your kids.
Yeah.
And God has blessed you to be here to raise your kids.
Oh, absolutely.
And you still keep having them. But, so I can only imagine how that would have been joyous,
mm-hmm.
scary.
Oh, sure.
Depressing, all those emotions wrapped up into one.
Yeah, and being high on top of it.
Being high on top of it.
So, I mean, you really feel the emotion even more. So.
And that was Dilaudid, you said?
Dilaudid, yeah.
Dilaudid. I need to make note of that. I'm going in for shoulder surgery. I'm going to see if that again.
Hey, man, like, I'm telling you, it's if it's got a street name, I don't know it. But, you might go in and ask them, and they might look at you like you're funny. But it's
so
a trip.
You've got all these emotions. You're holding your son, and how long did it take before you really got back to Texas?
Man, I guess I hadn't thought about that in a while. I was in Balboa, doing surgery and everything, and it was it was probably a good almost 3 months before, I got back to Texas just for like leave or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then while I was down here, because I was on leave, they were like, hey, you need to go to the CFI, the Center for the Intrepid there at BAMC in San Antonio. And then it was a thing of like, hey, man, I would rather like transfer my care to here. But, the hard thing about it is all of my med board stuff was going through, the West Coast, going through, in Pendleton, Wounded Warrior West over there. Mm-hmm. And so if I had moved completely to San Antonio, then it would have started the med board process over or something. And they were like, you need to stay here and do this. But they did allow me to go, I guess I was T80 for probably 6 months. I was back home and, doing all my rehabilitation and everything, all my surgeries and all that stuff over here in Balboa, or not in Balboa, but leaving from Balboa, coming over to BAMC. So I had probably a good 7 months here, and then I went back for a few months, and then did the retirement thing, and just pretty much buttoned up everything that I had left to do in the Marine Corps, and then went from there to Oklahoma for about 9 months. Doing a job over there for R&D on explosives, with a company that deals with that kind of stuff, and then decided I really hated Oklahoma. Because when I left for the Marine Corps, and I used to say it all the time when I was in, was, when I get out, I'm nailing my feet down to Texas and I'm never leaving. And the first place I go was Oklahoma. Like, what in the hell was wrong with me? It was a good job. It was a good job, and it was, and it came to me really easily. So, I took a chance on it, and it was fine. But Oklahoma just, wasn't where I wanted to be. I felt like being home would serve better in the healing process, so I moved back 9 months after that, and, the rest is just kind of history. I mean, now I've been back in Texas for, I don't know, 10 years. It's great, and I'm never leaving. You know, I mean, of course I leave to go vacation, but
Right.
but as far as like moving out of the great country of Texas, not happening.
Great country of Texas. Amen. So we got to know each other. God, how many years ago was that?
It was definitely before 2018.
Yeah.
Probably 2017, 2016 time frame.
Yeah, somewhere in
I
there.
would guess.
I remember you had signed up. It was actually a referral that got you on board with us, and we went to Texas Hunt Lodge, and we were after a black buck or an axis.
I think it was a black buck.
We were after a black buck, and I remember, man, we hunted hard, and if I'm not mistaken, most everybody on the rig was hungover. Because we pulled into Texas Hunt Lodge on a Friday evening. I went to bed because I reached a point where I just could not function. And from what I understand, you and one of our guides, a former Marine, Justin Taylor, y'all...
We burned it down.
Y'all burned the place down.
Yeah.
And Joey Holland, who was the sponsor, Joey has been phenomenal for this organization.
Oh yeah.
Veturo Interest, which, by the way, Veturo Interest, sponsor of this Conversations with Heroes. I did not say that in the beginning. I apologize, Joey, but you are the sponsor for this one.
That makes me happy because Joey's like one of my best friends. I mean,
yeah, and that's what's really cool about this. You come to an event, you got to actually, which is rare, got to hang out with the guy who was sponsoring the hunt.
Hang out, we did,
and you know it was incredible that y'all got to do that, and then you became very good friends.
Yeah. I mean, I would have to attribute that really to my turkey calling skills. I've
not heard this before.
Oh man. So, we're getting into the extracurriculars that night. And, anyway, so, I take a hit of this little pipe here. It's just, marijuana cigarette, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, again, never having done any, well, I mean, at this point I've done plenty of opiates in my life, thanks to the, good old USMC and the VA. But at this point, I wasn't on anything at all, no pain meds, everything was going really well for me. So I tried this and I thought I was going to be a big boy. And, I was not a big boy. I was reduced to laying in the fetal position at one point, I believe. And it was, it was mostly because I had already been drinking, because my drink of choice is Maker's Mark and Dr. Pepper.
Mm-hmm.
And, this Yeti here is not full of it today. It's just got water, but maybe later today. So anyway, I'd probably had like 2 or 3 of these things at this point. And I'm like, yeah, fuck yeah, I'll try it, And so everything's fine. Like I'm just giggling and stuff, for like the first 5 minutes, and then everything just goes wrong. Like I was like, oh, dude, I'm gonna be sick. So I leave the table and I walk over to the side of the porch. And my legs are hanging over, and I'm just sitting there throwing up. I mean, going to town and just throwing. And Joey and Justin are sitting behind me just laughing. Joey's like, you calling turkeys over there? Like he can't leave. And so anyway, that has been a really funny story that like really connected, the two of us. And so anytime we talk, that'll come up and, calling turkeys. And he actually called me not too long ago. And I guess he was not feeling very well after one of his hunts, and he goes, "Man, I was calling turkeys like you." And I was like, and he goes, "I was thinking about you the whole time."
Well, I can't say that when I've been in that position I'm thinking about anybody, but that's great.
You know what? Good, because that's a little payback. And he was just laughing the whole time, man. And so yeah, what a
I remember
dude.
that. I remember that morning. And I wasn't as in bad a shape as everybody else. Everybody was pretty pale.
Yeah.
But I still didn't feel good, but I felt better than all the rest of you guys.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember because we were out there at White Cross, and we were with Rick Davis, and we were chasing those black buck. And boy, they were elusive. We just couldn't hit it. And I remember coming by that one feeder, and he slams on the brakes. And everybody was just, I thought everybody was going to get motion sickness there for a second because their stomachs were so weak.
Oh, yeah.
And there was that axis, and he turned and looked, he goes, how about an axis? And you went, yeah.
Yeah, let's just do this.
Just get it over with. We need to go recuperate.
God, I think I crawled right into bed after we got back. I was like, man.
But, we talk about, what Headwaters for Heroes does, and you've been a recipient several times of being on hunts with us. And each time we've gotten to know you more, and I consider you a very close friend.
Sure.
You and I talk off and on, and I've watched you progress through life. Let's put it that way. But we've been together in several places, and you're. What was it like for you? I mean, being able to go out and do this type of hunt, and see the people that are really supporting it. What did that do? Because it's rare that, like I said, with Joey Holland being there as the sponsor, it's rare to have that. But what was it like for you as an individual coming to that?
The only way I know how to really put this is to compare it to other experiences, which I had, and one was just all about camera time. Like, hey, look what we're doing for these guys, and Steve Holden, Steve, one of my very best friends.
Yep.
That is where I met this man. And it was all, camera, everything. And it was terrible. It wasn't a great time.
Mm-hmm.
But, and then, I came over and did this, and it was the opposite. It was very like, hey man, like, you're here to just chill, do your thing. Like, let's have fun. So I think initially when I came into it, I wasn't really sure what to expect.
Well, I remember the phone conversations we had. And this is not unusual, but you were a bit standoffish on the phone.
Sure.
And I picked up on that, and that's not unusual. We see it all the time.
Yeah.
And that's what we're about is, and I try to reemphasize this to people. We're not about a dog and pony show.
Right.
We don't believe in that.
Yeah.
This is about your opportunity to chill out and just enjoy life.
Right. And, and coming kind of from my background, to know a little bit more about me and how I feel about certain things like this is I don't even ask for military discounts when I go anywhere. I mean, somehow even with the beard and the longer hair, like, people are like, yo, you military? Even if I have jeans on, and you can't see my leg, they'll still ask. I mean, I guess there's just something about my face. Maybe it looks funny or stupid. I don't know. But, they'll ask. I'm like, yeah, and maybe I'll take it. So for me, it was really hard to do this sort of thing because I'm not really a taker, right? Like,
right.
I don't do so well with receiving gifts and things like that. And so, of course, getting into this, I'm kind of like, man, there are people worse off than me. Like, maybe they should go do this. And then in talking to you, you're like, man, we got space. Trust me, you're fine. Like, you're not taking anybody's spot, nothing like that. And, and I was like, okay, well, I'll give it a shot. Why not? Like, one of my sayings, I'll try anything twice. So, and so anyway, I'm like, hey, yeah, let me try it out. And so I did. And it ended up being just a very, like, off the record type deal, right? I mean, I don't know how else to say it, but I mean, there wasn't like just a lot of like, hey man, like, you need to sit down in front of this camera, and then you need to pose over here with this or do this, or like, like pretend like you're laughing at a fucking joke or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
There was none of that going on, and so it was very comfortable. But in coming into my first experience, just coming in and meeting you, and I was like, okay, this guy is like real down to earth. Like, I can tell he really doesn't care about, too much of this, like, let me put on a show sort of thing. And so, just as soon as I got out to Kerrville, I was like, man, you know what? I feel better already. This is really cool. And then of course I met Justin, former Marine as well. And, so we clicked and that crazy son of a bitch. I really like that guy.
Justin Taylor over at Texas Hunt Lodge, we love him.
Oh yeah.
He's been a great guide for us over the years, but even being, a former Marine, that military, every time we take veterans over there, he's one of the key components that makes everybody feel right at home.
Oh yeah.
And everybody's comfortable. They say, oh, okay, this guy's, he's pounded the same sand we have.
Yeah.
And so it really does make it more comfortable for everybody. And,
Well, and he's a wild man, you know. He makes you feel comfortable. You know, he's very professional,
Yes.
very professional. But you know, like once you get to know him, you know, and then you're like having these conversations you would have with your boys, you know, while you're just bumping down the road in a Humvee or some shit. You know, like I mean, you're having a good time, you know, and he, you know, he's very relatable. And you know, and what was really great about him is he doesn't try to like get along with you. He just does.
right.
You know, and so that's just another factor into like me, like my comfort level was, you know, am I cool to be myself around these people, or do I have to like be something I'm not? And you know, when I met Justin, I was like, oh, I can be whoever the hell I want to be. This guy's just cool. You know, like he's all right. He just, you know, he told me, let's just have a good time. You know, let's have fun. Let's go hunt. You know, so it was great. And then that's also where I met TJ. You know, another recipient.
Right.
Super cool guy, man. Love him to death.
He's going to be here in a bit.
Yeah, I know. I'm hoping to cross paths with him. We used to both live in Spring Branch.
Right. I remember that.
Yeah, and so his kid was playing softball, mine was playing baseball, and so we'd see each other, you know, at the ball field and stuff. But that's where I met TJ, and then of course, you know, the heavy hitter shows up later, Joey. And you know, I think for all my fear, or not really fear, but all my like reluctance to jump into something again, you know, where I kind of would feel awkward about it. Just, I'm not an awkward person, but like I said, if I feel like somebody's maybe more deserving or somebody's in a worse situation, then, you know, I don't want to take that from somebody, you know, but after everything and after meeting everybody, I felt a lot less apprehensive about being there, and I felt a lot better. And then when I met Joey, I was just like, Jesus Christ, this is like my soul brother right here. Like, I mean, like I get him, you know, he's this big ginger, you know, just fun, just life of the party kind of guy,
Yeah.
you know? And so just from that point on, you know, that's when I just really felt very comfortable being around everybody. And then, you know, when you'd call me to see if I could go do something, and when my schedule would allow, you know, I would go and I would be comfortable with it, and I would have fun, and it would always be something to look forward to, you know. And so that's been my experience. And, you know, like I was very selective about who I wanted to do anything with, because I just had such a not great experience, just a bad experience the first time, you know.
Yeah.
So,
Well, early on, you know, we saw a lot of organizations out there, and it was about the dog and pony, and look at me, I'm hosting a veteran and taking pictures, and that was something, and it's just my upbringing. You know, I try to stay humble, and I don't want to use people.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I just don't believe in doing that. And, you know, it's tough for people when you're being given something. It's very hard for people to trust, because typically when you're given something, there's some kind of string attached to it. And so it takes a while for people when they're joining Headwaters for Heroes to realize there ain't no strings.
Right.
Now, yeah, we do call and say, hey, you willing to come do this with us? Just like this session we're doing.
Sure.
And if you're not comfortable, you say no. And that doesn't change our attitude.
Right.
But, you know, it's been good. You know, our experience with you has been phenomenal. And like I said, I've got to see you go through phases, and they were all interesting.
Yeah.
That's as far as I'm going to go with it. But here, you got married again.
I did. Sorry.
And how many more kids have you had since you got married?
Two. So, you know, we're up to 6, you know, in total. So a lot of kids. A lot of kids.
What's that like? And you guys are entrepreneurs. Y'all got a lot going on. And
you know, honestly, it's an exercise in patience. Is really the best way that I know how to put it. You know, you really find out a lot about yourself. You find out a lot about your marriage and your partner and everything else, right? And because I mean, you know, when people ask me, you know, what I do, normally my response is, well, I'm a dad. I mean, that, because to me, that's the first and foremost. That's like one of the most important things is being a very good dad and being a great husband, to my wife. Those are my two number one things. A job is a job. I can go get another one somewhere else if I need to. But it is, it's a lot because, not only do we have all these kids, we've got these businesses as well. And we've got full-time jobs, and, I work in the oil and gas industry. I sell downhole tools to drilling rigs, and I mean, you've seen my phone. It's Saturday, things still going off, and it's a nonstop thing. But having the kids it can be stressful, but they're all great. For the most part, like we really don't have many issues. They're older for the most part. They really get what I expect or what their mother expects. And then that's just what we do. Now, that doesn't stop them from taking couch cushions and throwing them into the fucking yard and playing on them.
Yeah.
But, it's still a thing of our older kids have become very reliable in the sense of, making sure that, so just to give it all out to you, Jackson is, he's 12, Macy's 11, Campbell's 7, Case is 6, Rip is what is he, a year and 2 months, and then Riv is 2 months. So we had these. I mean, we got Irish twins. I mean, 3 sets of them, pretty much. But the older two definitely know the program. And they know. Shoot, Maisie will get up in the morning, and if the babies are still asleep, they're like, hey, she's like, hey, you know what? I'll make waffles for everybody and like let the parents sleep. I mean, she's just got a real big heart like that. She wants to, and she wants to mother everybody. Yeah. And I mean, she's great with the babies, stuff like that. So, we have a little bit of help coming, from that side of things where, they're always, so we call them the bigs, the middles, and the littles. And the bigs are always like, trying to keep the middles like, hey, this is what you're supposed to be doing. Don't do this, don't do that. So there's some help there. But then raising 2 babies, both, I mean, 1 and less, 1 and under, it's a whole different dynamic. It's a whole different deal. It is a straight up a full-time job. And why we did it again, I'm not really sure, but we did. And I don't regret it. I mean, like Rip, our 1-year-old, the happiest kid you will ever meet. I mean, he is just, he loves to laugh. I mean, he is a ball of fire. He is the funniest little kid.
Who takes after his mother?
Yeah.
I love her.
So, he's just so happy. I mean, he just, like, everything is funny to him. And he just, I mean, I don't know. I just can't tell you. Like, he has really changed our lives in a really big way. Like, he's very impactful to our whole family because everybody just loves this kid. I mean, he's just laughing and he wants to be with everybody, and he thinks it's funny to grab something, and then when you got to get it from him, he just runs. And he's just like a little fat chunky thing, and he's not running really fast, but he thinks he's smoking you, right? And he's just laughing the whole time, and you catch him and pick him up and take it and kiss on him and stuff, and he's just still laughing. And then you got Riv, who 2 months old, still figuring out his way in the infant world, I suppose. Figuring out how to sleep through the night. He's we started feeding him a lot more. So I see another Rip in our future who Rip is just this like fat little baby. And I mean, it's the cutest thing. I mean, he was running around naked last night. Charlie was going to put him in the bath. We got home from dinner. I was taking care of Riv, and I'm in Riv's nursery, which which is glass doors, and if you look out back to the right, you can see into the kitchen and everything else. We got this big open floor plan. Right. So anyway, I see little naked butt running into the kitchen with stuff from the bathroom, and I hear Charlie, Rip, get back here, whatever. And so I chase him down and catch him, and I take him back in there, and he's still naked, and Charlie, she's kind of like warming up the bath for him, kind of doing her thing with it. And anyway, this boy, he likes to run over to the bed, and our bed's a little bit high, but he likes to like throw himself against it, right? And it's funny. It's fun to him. Don't ask me why. I mean, I don't know. But anyway, so he gets in the bath and everything. Bath goes well. Well, I'm sitting on the side of the bed, and I look down, and with my prosthetic, you really just kind of have like one point of friction that really, because it's easy to slip is what I'm trying to say. Mm-hmm. So I go to sit down on the bed, and my foot slips out from underneath me, my prosthetic, and I look down. I'm like, man, what is that? And I was like, he ain't been out of the bed. I was like, oh my God, he just pissed down the side of my bed. And all onto the floor. So that, that's, it was funny, and Charlie laughed about it. And so, that's kind of what we deal with, on a daily basis, but it's fun.
Well, I've watched y'all, and I'm very impressed with you as a father. You got 6 kids you're dealing with of different ages, and and I see other veterans that don't deal as well.
Sure.
We see a high divorce rate. We see way too much suicide.
Right.
And but more importantly, it's the family that suffers.
Oh, sure.
And I guess, is there a formula? Is there advice? Is there something that you can tell another veteran that maybe would change that and put them back as a family person?
Well, it's funny you ask about this, because it's hard for some people to hear, but being part of this what I like to call the wounded community. Uh-huh. There's a lot of self-pity, woe is me, sort of mentality that goes on, and it's really hard for me to associate with other wounded veterans because of this exact mentality, right? Some good examples of people like me, like TJ. He is not like that at all.
No.
And I love the guy. Like I can hang out with him all day and know that I'm not going to have to worry about that kind of stuff. Where I have in the past tried to help other veterans, that are kind of dealing with similar situations, and they refuse to get out of their own heads. You can tell them anything you want to. You can talk to them until you're blue in the face, saying, "Look, man, like try this or try that or whatever. Get off the Xbox or the PlayStation or whatever. Like get up and go do something. Go to the gym. Go for a walk. I don't know. Go check your mail. Like do something other than sitting right here, living a sedentary lifestyle, living inside your own head, and not really caring to change anything for yourself. So no, there is nothing I can say. There is no advice I can give. There is nothing I can do because it's not up to me. It's up to them. And when you look at guys like me and like TJ, our thing is, dude, what happened. Like it's life. Like outside of stuff like this, I don't ever really even talk about being in the Marine Corps. Like, sure, I make leg jokes and stuff like that, but man, that was a different part of my life. Like, I had to bury that shit. Like, I had to move on because I had to do it for my kids. Because initially, I did go through that. I was like, man.
But isn't that the big part of it right there? That's the advice, I think, is you do have, and it's very, very difficult, in our lives, and I don't want to get into biblical, but, we talk about forgiveness, and some of that is sure. When you forgive, you're supposed to forget. Move on. And right. We do see those that struggle with moving on. Now, some of that is self-inflicted, and some of it is maybe they just don't know how.
Well, and, I can see both sides of that, but sitting on this side of the table, mm-hmm. knowing exactly what these people are dealing with, exactly. Like, you have 2 choices. And I firmly and fully believe this, and if you cannot tell, this is something I am passionate about. You have 2 choices. You either stay stuck or you get the fuck up and you move. Like, those are your choices.
Yeah.
Like, and it's not up to anybody else. Like, when I got out, man, I thought my life was over. I wasn't a Marine anymore. I wasn't an EOD tech. Like, this is all I wanted to do. This is all I wanted to be. Like, I planned on retiring at 20 years, 30 years, whatever. Like, I had a whole like thing. I had a whole plan for my life, and it stopped. It stopped on, June 18th, 2011. That plan stopped. And on June 19th, I knew I had to make a decision. Like, do I let this stop my life? Do I let this affect me? Or do I keep moving? And when everything was said and done, when all the surgeries were out of the way, when the leg came off, when it was all done, I still had the mentality of, you know what, I'm still moving forward. I got to do this. 5 days after I got my first prosthetic, I was in hunting in New Mexico for elk in the mountains. Like, I had had a leg for 5 days, and that's what I was doing. So for me, I don't, and there's also a stigma around going to therapy. It's something I fully believe in. Like, at first I didn't. I came from a hard charging community. Like, man, that shit's for the weak. Like, you don't do that. No, like, and if you do, you don't tell anybody about it because you're an outcast. There's a stigma related to it, and it's one of those things where it's like, when you're now in the civilian world, there's no stigma to anything like that because you're no longer part of that community. Like, right. Now you need to go take care of yourself, and you need to take care of yourself for more than just you, but for your family. But first and foremost, you do it for yourself, and you got to go into it. And I'd probably seen 6 or 7 different therapists that wanted to do all these different weird things, right? And then I finally found this lady, Courtney Guest, out of Austin. She doesn't take TRICARE, and I paid for it out of my own pocket. This is how serious I was about moving on with my life. And this woman changed my life in 2 weeks. I did what she calls intensive therapy, and it was 4 hours a day for 2 weeks. And so I drove into Austin. It was an 1.5-hour drive to get to where she was, and did this 4 hours a day for 2 weeks. And what she did was she just helped me process things that I couldn't process. And honestly, that's really where it starts, is if you can't get out of your head and you can't just like really get past something that happened, you need to see somebody that can help you get to that point. Because then once you overcome this and you're not like bogged down by, like, I had survivor's guilt terribly. Not something I'm going to get into, but I'm just going to say that I did, like, and it was bad. It was just one of those things where, to be honest with you, I had a gun in my mouth one night, and my son started crying, and another decision point, right? And I was, oh shit, I should take care of him. Put the damn thing down and picked him up and never thought about it again. Wow. I mean, there are things that you have to do for yourself. And that in that situation, my son saved my life. There's no doubt. And he will know that when he grows up. It's something that he holds a very special place in my heart because of that. And because of that, and every other moment that I have chosen to just get up and, grab the day by the balls and move on, that right there is what has made me into who I am now. Like, I mean, you've seen me in all kinds of different phases and stuff, but you've never seen me give up.
No, that's I do admire that, because every step of the way you always had that can do, I'm going to charge ahead.
Right.
And it's one of the things that I really admire about you. And that's let us become very good friends in the process, because I admire what you've done. And I know I ask everybody about the advice thing, and most of them do say the same thing. It's up to the individual. Mm-hmm. But, I'm a firm believer, if that individual's out there listening to this, and that an example could change them. And you set a great example, in my opinion. You're a family man, you're an entrepreneur, you're even in exotics now, exotic animals, and you guys are just...
We're all over the map.
You're all over the map. But it is so cool to see and watch. And Charlie is just an incredible individual. I can't help but believe she's been very good for you. But at the same time, I think you've been very good for her too. I mean, y'all just, it's incredible to watch the two of y'all. And I love seeing that in my veterans that come around. Is, we're a big believer in family.
Oh yeah.
And so that to me was really, really cool.
Well, and that's one thing I will say about this organization, because if you get me started talking about my wife, you may as well just get me on a whole nother podcast, because I could talk about my wife until the sun goes down. I mean, the woman just is, she is my end all be all. She is the yin to my yang. I mean, she is like literally everything good in my life starts and ends with her. And I fully believe that. She is a pain in my ass. There is no doubt. But she is so worth it. And I know she says I'm the same way. But anyway, you know, and that's the thing that I like about this organization is it's very family oriented. Because, you know, when Charlie and I first got together, I really wanted, she doesn't know what any of this stuff's about. She doesn't know, she doesn't know the military stuff. She doesn't know anything about anything, right? She just, it's never been in her life.
Right.
So, you know, and then we went on that fishing tournament, and, you know, you let her come and be like my partner in this fishing tournament. And there was no other organization that I could think of that would allow, you know, me and my wife to do that. And, you know, that was a big deal because she got to come and she got to hang out and meet some other wives. She got to go fishing. She got to kind of see what it was really all about, you know, and that was great. And she saw that, you know, not everything's about, you know, what you see in the movies about some really tough guy that, you know, just doesn't give a shit about his family or anything like that. And, you know, it's just a lone wolf sort of thing, right? You know, we have friends, we have things that we do. And, you know, she got to see that through this organization. And so, you know, I find that to be a very big deal to me. And everything we've done, like when we went to TGR, her and all the kids were there.
Yeah.
And they had a blast. Charlie thought it was, you know, one of the coolest things. I mean, she wants to go back to another banquet like that, you know, and I told her, I said, there's all kinds of cool stuff we can do. You know, I mean, there's SCI, you know, there's Dallas Safari, there's all this stuff. And then, but I was like, you know, TGR is something a little bit different, which that segued us into a whole different life, you know. But so all in all, that's to say, like, you know, if I can shout out the organization about the family stuff, and when you say that you're about family, like, I mean, that is really true. And I've seen it time and again. I've seen it with these Gold Star families, you know, and these kids. I don't know of another organization that does that, and I've told you that a million times. I don't know of I've never even heard of it. Like, you know, I know.
Well, you know, our Gold Star program is different than most. A lot of people take Gold Star kids hunting, but we bring the same ones back year after year to teach them.
Sure.
You know, we're not going to replace their father.
Right.
But we can be that big brother. We can be that uncle. In my case, grandpa.
Sure.
You know, we can give them an environment and a mentorship sort of. You know, we can mentor them through the hunting and fishing. And so when they turn 18 and they graduate, they've got the skills their father would have taught them.
Yeah.
And they can go and do. But at the same time, they become family.
Yeah.
You know, I have many of the veterans that, you know, okay, even those that are not married and maybe struggling to have relations with their kids, they're still family.
Oh, sure.
They know they can call, and we get a lot of calls.
Yeah.
We get some calls that really have to struggle with.
Yeah.
And, you know, but we believe in the family, and if you come here, you're a part of the family.
Yeah, no doubt. And, you know, that's the way that I feel, you know. When I found out some stuff in your life, you know, I told you, I said, hey, man, your family, like, I'm going to check in on you, and I did.
Yeah.
You know, but that's just the way, you know, I not to get off on a societal tangent here, but, you know, society in general has become so disruptive in the family scene, and, you know,
yeah, I agree.
You can always find something better. You can find something new. You can find something different. Shit's not worth fighting for anymore. Like, you know, there are times that Charlie and I, you know, you look at our life. We got 6 kids. We've got 4 businesses. I mean, we've got also full-time jobs that we do. I mean, we are just busy people. And you know, when I got divorced, I was like, man, I ain't getting married again, man. That shit's for the birds, you know? And I mean, you can attest to that.
I was around.
Go ahead and ask Jeff. Jeff can attest to that shit too.
Yeah.
Like, so,
y'all had a lot of windshield time.
We
He learned a lot.
did. But, you know, the thing is like, Charlie was like so unexpected for me. She she fucking came out of nowhere. I mean, she is like a tornado in a West Texas trailer park, man. She came in and turned my life upside down, but in like the best of ways. And, so there will be times that we are so stressed out by some of this stuff that we will be at each other's throats, and we are just like, man, fuck you, no, you know. But I mean, it's stuff it's just tension and frustration that's built up. But at the end of the day, like, no matter how stressed out we are, because we don't have anybody to take this stuff out on, and you're the hardest on the people you love, right?
Right. That's absolutely right.
There's a saying that goes into
We're
that.
comfortable.
Right. And so Charlie and I are no different. And some people have seen us fight before, but I mean, we're both so strong-willed, but at the end of the day, that woman and myself know that we're not going to trade each other for anything. There is no grass is greener. There's no this life over here is going to be better, or maybe I could do something better with this person, or this or that. Like, that's just not who we are. And even when the tough gets tougher, and the hard seems like it's something you're never going to get out of, we know that we're there for each other. And at the end of the day, we always say goodnight, we always say I love you, and we always kiss before bed. Every single night. And that, because I feel like that is so important in our marriage. It's the last thing of the day that you do before you go to sleep that I think is some of the most important time in your relationship.
Yeah, you should never go to bed angry. It took my wife and I years, but and it's a whole different experience when you have that.
It is. And I mean, I'm not saying we're not guilty of doing that ourselves, but I will tell you this. I could never trade my wife for anything, for anyone, you couldn't offer me enough money in the world. You couldn't offer to give me my own country, and I would give my wife up. I just wouldn't do it, because I'm at a point now where I'm kind of, we're so ingrained, and we have so much going on with each other that I could never have this with anybody else. And, I'm an ambitious person. And, when I met Charlie, I was like, man, this girl kind of got a lot going on. Like, she got her own business stuff. She does people's taxes. She does books for people, this and that. I didn't realize just how deep her ambition was until, we got married, and we're like, all right, we're doing this thing, like, let's saddle up and go. Being married to somebody who is as ambitious, if not more so than me, it can be trying sometimes, but I will tell you, it is one of the biggest blessings I've ever had, because she makes me strive to be better every single day. I used to be the one pushing myself, and now she pushes me. And I push her, I think, but that we're not going to let these societal ideals like come into our house, and see that just because things are hard, we're going to let things, tear us away from each other. We got too much. We got kids. We got everything, We're not going to raise our kids in a broken home.
Yeah, and I admire that. I mean, you have really, and you're one of the success stories that I refer to a lot when I talk to people. And I don't mean a success story in the fact of, that you're a millionaire or anything like that.
Sure.
But it's a success story of a human being that has taken care of the family, is moving forward, doesn't let anybody hold them back.
Right.
And that sets a great example. And to me, that's the true success story.
Yeah.
And it's someday, God, I hope you guys are billionaires, but that's not the true success. The true success that you guys wear and show is what you're doing with your family and the way y'all really, really take care of each other. And y'all are a fun couple.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
As we get started to wrap this up, is there any advice you want to give any of the veterans, any of the people out there? Any parting comments?
No, I mean, I'm just glad we didn't get into some of the debauchery today. I wasn't not sure I was ready to talk about all that. With that,
that'd be another session.
It would, but I would say this, and this is just some of my personal belief. It doesn't matter if you're a veteran or wounded veteran, never served in the military, never done anything. I believe that, once you set your mind on something, you should pursue it. And one person I really look to and see who has done that is Joey.
Yeah.
I try to take a lot of pages out of his book. I look at this guy, started a company just
with $500 in an Austin bar.
That's it. And I mean,
and look at him.
And that's my thing is like that can be all of us,
Yeah.
And I mean, you would look at Joey and this is how humble of a guy you need to be to really be successful in anything you pursue in. You would never know that Joey has what he has or runs what he runs or builds what he builds because he is a humble person. Yeah. And he will not talk about it. He's not going to, I got this and I got that. And I feel like that right there was a big learning lesson for me. I've never been like a real cocky guy, but being humble in the things that you're doing, I think it's just a great way to start. And watching what that man does, and he doesn't blast his stuff all over the place about I am like this successful and I do this.
No,
and,
he does not.
He talks about his family a lot, and he talks about like, hey man, today's about perseverance. Get up and go. Stuff like that. But my advice would be, first humble yourselves.
Absolutely.
Because that's the very first step into coming into something great. Because those that are cocky, you're just going to overdo it, And I believe that there's like a bit of humbleness, and you've got a big business, and you're probably one of the most humble people I know, Steve.
Well, thank you.
So I believe it all starts with being humble, and it starts with an idea and following through.
Right.
And to the other wounded vets that are having maybe a hard time, like I say, it's up to them to want to get better. Man, go to therapy. Like, it's actually not that bad. You really get to air some shit out, that you've been keeping in, and and processing, being able to process that stuff's a big deal too. So, I mean, other than that, wrap it before you tap it. Don't stick your dick in crazy. That's what I say.
Well, Matt, I'm so honored to have you here today. It's just like I said, I think the world of you, and to do what we do though, folks, we got to raise money, and that's what we do. We do it basically once a year, but we've changed up our fundraising a little bit. Coming up May 11th is our annual car show where we're partnering with Zion Lutheran Church in Kerrville this year. We listened to what a lot of the car show entrants had said. We were out here on the dirt, and they tried to get us to move away from it, and we're doing it. So we're going to be on pavement over there. That's May 11th. That's where we're going to be raffling off the 1978 Chevy Silverado truck donated by Mr. Jeff Barrett out of the Snyder, Texas area. Always been a big supporter of ours. We appreciate him. That Chevy Silverado has a 454 SS crate motor in it. This thing is awesome. It is a collector's item. I think one of the great things about it, the headliner is signed by country music artists Mo Bandy and Joe Stampley. Those tickets are $20 each, or $6 for $100. And you can get those online. Go to headwatersforheroes.com or go to our Facebook page. You'll find it there. And we are going to draw for that pickup on May the 11th. May 18th is our sporting clay shoot, Joshua Creek Ranch Shooting Club. We're looking forward to that. It'll be our first year over there. That's going to be an awesome shoot. You going to come shoot this year, Matt, again?
Yep.
Good deal.
I sure think so.
So we'll be over there. More information will be coming out on that. May 25th is our annual banquet and auction where we'll have hunts, custom guns. We'll have a lot going on there. It will also be live online that day with DV online auctions. So there's a lot going on. If you have any questions about Headwaters for Heroes, check us out at headwatersforheroes.com. Check out our Facebook page. That's where a lot of the stuff happens. Or call our office and talk to Miss Lynn Withers, 830-864-4096. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning into this. And thank you to Verturo Interest, Joey Holland, La Lupita Ranch. Thank you for your support, and thank you for being the sponsor of this episode. God bless.